Hello, welcome again to session two of facilitating flexible learning in our K to 12 experience. So pedagogy um, for flexible learning, our K to 12 experience. We will be focusing on in session two on quality online learning modules. This is very important. During the beginning of this pandemic, many have been asking me, how do we write the modules? What will we give our learners? What will we give them as materials? How do we organize? Is it an outline? Is it a lesson plan? What shall we do? If we will be using a platform, what will we give? How will we design this? Um, so I have proposed series, and this is one of those. And we will be talking about quality online learning modules. Well, we can also say quality modules. It's not only for online, as you will notice later on, but when you're in distance, you're using distance education, and then you're using a platform, or you can, even if without a platform, you can still share the module. You can still share the module online. You can still send through email. Students will have access to the module. So let's try to see what how you can use this structure when you design your own. Is competent it's used is DepEd using it? You are already in the competency based curriculum. As you will notice, during the shift from uh, that which was not basic education with K to 12 to K to 12, the government has changed. No, they changed the structure of the curriculum, the content of the curriculum, and how this one is designed. And we are already in the competency based curriculum. Why do you think DepEd is using CBC? You will have to understand the sequence that in CMO 46 of 2012, there was that higher education CMO, Child Memorandum Order, that emphasized outcomes based education. And CMO 46 series of 2012 was is telling us of the quality assurance mechanism within the outcomes based education framework. And the emphasis is outcomes. When we went to Republic Act 10533, the emphasis there is competencies. Competencies. So you see, competency based curriculum is clear. In fact, during the pandemic, you will notice the government has adjusted the competencies, right? So now you are operating on the most essential learning competencies, the MELT. And this is already, this pretty sure tells us that we are interested in competencies. We are developing competencies among our students. This is the result of an analysis. This is the result of research that our graduates are not competent. They are just knowledgeable and not competent. You know the story. How did you develop your online modules in Moodle? I used Moodle also. Just for example, what is your design? What principles have you used in your design of online learning materials like online modules in Moodle? And also, what did you use when you design modules? What will we use? Back then, when they asked me how to design printed modules, because the modules that you can design via print or in print can still be used, can be transported in an online version. So the structure is the same, maybe the delivery will be different, but how you structure the learning process will just be the same. So that's my view when you ask me how to design. So what are the principles? So the context is, if you are having an LMS or an SMS, you are going full online, your students are ready, they have the capability. This my suggestion these are my suggestions for you. So this is the context in the development of these models, these suggestions, in the design of modules, online or printed. They are just the same. The difference is how you deliver. When you have a platform, that's where the difference is. And when you just email or hand this to the student in print, how do you follow up? How do you facilitate learning? It will be also quite different. But the structure of the learning process, the structure, the organization of the first in the module, what's next in the module, they are just the same. All right, so we have covered these references. What is an online learning module, or what is a module? A tool that provides course materials in a logical, sequential order and guiding students through the content. I will highlight this because this is very important. Okay, so when you have a module with you, you are, this is a tool, okay, this is a tool that provides the learners a logical sequential order in guiding students through the content. So you're already sure that in a module there is content and assessments. They also have assessments in the order specified the instructor. So in this definition here, which is very familiar definition and working one, you have the content in that module. At the same time, you have the assessments, the checking for understanding, the activities from which you can decide whether the learners are picking up the content, are understanding the content. All right. So that is our definition of a module. And what can you insert in that module? In an online, if you place it online, you can then do hyperlink. You can link formatted text, files, web links. If you're using Moodle, it's easy to do that. In other Google Classroom, you can also do that. In other platforms, you can also do that. So the idea is the same. If you know how to manipulate technology, you can just insert text, assessments. They can be done online. You can just design that there. While in print, of course, you will be typing them out. If you have a video, you have to have a USB, or you can share it through YouTube or what. So these are some things that probably make the difference. But the structure of the learning process is the same. How do we design it? So we will briefly discuss principles of deep design. We will be describing student and learning centered instructional design. We will take a look at the application of the backward design in the UBD, because I realized that UBD, dimensions of learning, DOL, these are some very, very neat models we can use during this time. Online learning module, it's a tool, as you said, as we have repeated, and it is logical, sequential order. So let's see how we will order it based on some models of learning of them. Okay. Curriculum design and lesson planning is the process of developing lessons, assignments, units. So part of curriculum design, we develop lessons. That's a part of the process. Develop assignments. So when you develop performance tasks, units, right? Develop projects to teach students knowledge and skills. This is part of curriculum design. And let's not forget, in our curriculum designing year, when it's macro, you're developing the big design for a course. If it's micro, your module, your lesson plans, micro level in curriculum designing, you will be integrating, okay? You will be incorporating the learning standards and objectives of the state. So it's important that we know our milk. It's important that we are oriented with a curriculum guide given by government. So we can download them from the internet. You have copies, I'm sure. So let's see how we can incorporate. Those are just minimum standards set by government, minimum standards. So incorporating, okay, adapting them, but we can be flexible. So here we have the flexibility of content. We have to integrate them to our standards. So we have a church standard, AUP has, the church has, our priorities, our distinctive IFL, our gospel, our Bible subjects, we will integrate them to and incorporate them to to the minimum standard set by government. In fact, we still have to stretch content, add more, because we are just meeting the minimum standards if we are basing it in government. Many have said we will just implement the mail, we'll just follow the mail. Oh, that's a problem. If we'll just follow the milk, okay, because the milk will probably uh, will 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 just give you the minimum requirements, but they do not give you the complete minimum standards only. In fact, today they have congested. Okay, they have reduced. I should say reduced. Okay, just for this time that there's pandemic. So we can add, we can stress. So here we have flexibility in content. So the key there is incorporate. So the curriculum then incorporates. So I'll highlight this because this is an important principle that we have incorporate. So it's not only following the milk, but incorporate to our standards. Okay, very important. Curriculum is any document that exists in a school that defines the work of teachers by identifying content to be taught and what methods to use. So that's curriculum. So we can have many definitions of curriculum. Curriculum as a decision, well, you have all your standards up there decided by government and those who are in the top level in design of curriculum. So anything that you place inside your lesson, that's curriculum, a decision. So if the teacher decided this is on the activity, that is the activity, that is the activity, I'll incorporate this content, that's a decision you make. And that forms part of the curriculum. Curriculum as a decision. However, we can also say curriculum is any document that exists in a school that defines the work of teachers by identifying the content and other methods that you incorporate. What are non-negotiables in curriculum design? You have to begin with the end in mind. Essential learning outcomes. In the learning targets for basic education, higher education outcomes, learning outcomes. You see that in CHED memorandum orders, in your PSGs, policies, standards, and guidelines. Okay, PSG. Then you have learning targets, the milk, most essential learning competency. I think we are already on a weekly arrangement. So every week you have competences to carry out. And you have to carry them out, but incorporate them to standards of the university, of your school, so that content can be enhanced. So when we develop curricula, when we develop materials for our class as curriculum documents, we will unpack the standards. So we are unpacking the standards. We are not copying the standards only. We are not copying the milk. If possible, we can transform them to bite-sized, uh, bite, bite-sized materials, if you will say, so that these can be assimilated. These can be easily learned by the learners. We can transform them without losing the minimum standards. Identify transfer goals. So it's not only acquiring knowledge but transfer of learning. We know that as educators that our goal is using knowledge, transfer of learning to life. Let's not forget that when we design our lessons, when we design our modules, we not only design for accumulation, acquiring knowledge, but transfer, application of knowledge. Okay, we also have to employ non-negotiable in curriculum design, design formative assessments. We already know in in teacher education that formative assessments are very important. They are our helpers. They are our assistants. They play very important roles in assessing students' learning, and we have to incorporate that into the module. Very important. We have to have that in the module. Implement curriculum. Of course, after we have designed our curriculum, we have to implement, we have to monitor, we have to secure feedback from our stakeholders, those who are using, the parents, the learners. We have to assess students' learning, whether or not we have implemented that curriculum and assess. Because there is an implemented curriculum and there is an assessed curriculum, evaluated curriculum. The one we have implemented, okay, this is an implemented curriculum. We have already given the module. Okay. But after assessment, we saw that, oh, these are only what the students have learned. This is the assessed curriculum. This is the effect of our curriculum, our implemented curriculum. Our written curriculum will have an effect. Assessed curriculum. Okay. If the student just got a score of 79, that's the assessed curriculum. That's all that the learner has learned. That's curriculum too. So this is my suggestion. If you will develop online or face-to-face module, we have to review principles of deep design, dimensions of learning, community of inquiry framework, other where this is the backward approach. We can integrate this into these principles. We can integrate into the learning module. All right. So that's what we will do. How deep is your instructional design? How can we translate curriculum guide standards into specific lessons that make sense to students? That is one question. So we translate curriculum standards into specific lessons that make sense to the students. That's very important principle. What are these that students? What are these that make students ready to learn? What are these that make students ready to learn? What will engage students? How can I design meaningful learning experiences that last for a lifetime? These are questions. So deep work of designing includes deep into the student's learning experience. So we design looking at the deeper experiences of the learners, deep into content, deep into the specific learning activities. We have to analyze, we have to understand them, how these activities are connected to thinking, to content, deep into assessment approaches to detect learning. We have to use assessment. So we have to carefully choose our assessment approaches, uh, 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 formative, summative, and see whether they can detect learning. Is your true or false detecting learning? Maybe shallow, maybe other. So he can be flexible. This is where flexibility has to really apply. Flexible learning, even in assessments. Deep into demonstrated student learning, useful. So you dive in and discover demonstration of students learning and what is useful, what is meaningful, and there you can design nicely your okay. Okay, deep work. If teacher just say, "What will I do this afternoon?" That is just compliance. What activity will my students enjoy? Hey, this is teacher and classroom centered instructional design. But if you are moving to student and learning centered instructional design, what students thinking versus activities? How will students learn? So you are analyzing that. That's a question that is focused on student and learning centered instructional design. How will students be thinking? How will students learn? This is development of intellectual skills versus teacher's performance. In the traditional approach, teacher centered, the teacher performs. Okay, the teacher performs, and that's everything in the classroom. Student just listens. Okay, students just listen. But in student centered, we are developing the intellectual skills, how they will translate those intellectual skills into some performance. And that's competency based. What will students take away from classroom learning activities? Okay, what will they take away from this classroom activity? What will they learn? What are the principles? What changes in the lives of the learners they will experience after these activities. What will students learn today? The question is that versus what will students do today? See, so that is our question always. What will students learn today? Not just giving them an activity and then what will they do today? That is a big difference in design. Long-term outcomes. You are interested in long-term outcomes. So this is deep work of designing. So we will be carefully writing our modules because students will receive a material and we would not like them to just say, I'll comply. They should learn. There should be changes in their lives. Uh, there should be deep learning as well. Okay. Focus on student-centered and learning-centered instructional design. How will students learn? Teaching them how to learn. We should teach them how to learn. We have to provide them learning strategies. Okay, in the module, we do not only give a test there. What is the assessment? Give a test. True or false? No, 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 no. We have to design, we have to provide learning strategies. We have to incorporate learning strategies inside the module. We have to immerse the students, the learners, into a learning pathways. So the role of the teacher here is designing. Okay, we design. And when the students read the module, they will learn. We will walk through pathways of learning. They will not just be taking tests. They will not just be reading a content there. No, 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 no. They have to go through learning strategies. So we have to design it carefully in such a way that when they work with the assignments there, they will go through learning pathways, consequently developing thinking, emotions, values, etc., etc. From cognitive to affect to psychomotor. Okay. So, what is adequate lesson planning? Let's just review this. Consider the interest, the content, skills, competences. We also have to have assessment of learning. We have to consider the learning difficulties of the learners. And addressing those learning difficulties, we will be flexible. We have to provide flexibility. All right? Prior knowledge, also after we know that prior knowledge of the student is this and that, we can differentiate, we can craft our response to these needs and difficulties using some interest content, some others. And we have to guide for transfer of learning. I said earlier that the goal of our lessons will be not only acquisition of knowledge but transfer of learning. All right, so we discussed deep learning briefly. All right, so now here's another principle here, community of inquiry framework. This is very nice framework. And when I read just last year in May, when pandemic started, no? When the pandemic started in the Philippines, all right, what will be our basis? What will be our basis? What framework should we use so that we can develop blended or online learning? What will be the framework? Then, experts in the field, online learning, those who have gone ahead of us in doing this, said community of inquiry, which is grounded in collaborative constructivism. This will be our framework. Let's take a look at this. So, in the community of inquiry, when you design online learning modules, social presence must be there. Social presence is evident. Cognitive presence, evident. Teaching presence, it should be evident. So when we design our module, is there social presence? When we design the module, is there teaching presence? Is it visible in the module, both online and print? Cognitive presence. So these are the elements of those presences, if we will say that. So when we say social presence, affective expression, open communication, group cohesion. So in an online class, you have the emoticons, right? Emoticons. Risk-free expression. They can express, ma'am, I can't do this. They can use their chat boards, okay, and then they can share. If you have a discussion board there for some issues, so you encourage collaboration. So even in an online environment, you can still the effective affective expression, the open communication we should be encouraged. Group cohesion. Imagine you are not physically present, but inside the Zoom probably, or inside the LMS, all of you can just feel each one's presence. And we should also eliminate the idea that it is just teacher talking everything. Okay, so allow group cohesion, sharing of thoughts, sharing, encourage collaboration. Cognitive presence. This is the exploration, integration, resolution, the triggering events for learning. This includes connecting of ideas. This is the content side, the processing of information, the processing of content and skills. So here is content, skills, procedural or declarative knowledge, processing inside here. And the teaching presence can be felt because here it is orderly, logical. The design and organization of the module is detected. So if the module is very organized, clearly arranged, clearly sequenced the activities from stating the objectives until each of the learning activities are carried out, or each of the learning targets are carried out. Organization is there. There is a section where there is discourse is facilitated. There is also direct instruction. There are instructions provided by the teacher. Teaching element is there. Response of the student organized properly designed. Then the teaching presence is felt. So if the module is disorganized, if the learning process is disorganized, no teacher's presence, no teaching presence. Content missing, skills missing, content, we say, part of the module, no cognitive presence. Teachers are not taught, the students are not taught how to learn content by activities, tasks, no cognitive presence. It doesn't encourage uh, group cohesion, sharing, no social presence. So all these elements must be available. Okay, so this is the educational experience if you are in online particularly, or distance learning, still you have this. So, but how will online Christian teachers adapt this? How? This is the reason why I cannot just adapt and copy just any other lesson from government. I did not like. I reviewed what they have, but I just cannot adopt easily and copy and paste what the government has done and placed it inside. I cannot just use any other materials available. I cannot just use any other learning activity or approach. I cannot accommodate any other content or textbook and just all. I have to review. Why? Because as an Adventist educator, I cannot just easily adapt or adopt any other online learning platform. There is this is business. I'm sure people will say, just adapt this. All the materials are ready. All the activities are ready. We have designed the teaching presence there. Everything is there. Package already. You just have to pay, and then students have to pay. Well, my take on that is no. How will a Christian teacher adapt this? The problem of these others, because they have the social presence, but where is God's presence? That's very important. And the God's presence must dictate our social presence, our cognitive presence, what we should place inside in content and skills, how we will organize learning social environment in the context of God as there. Teaching, how do we organize if the presence of God is there? So God's presence should be there. That's why I said we have to add this from the Adventist point of view, God's presence. So our integration of faith and learning to life must be there also because God's presence. So in the community of inquiry, my take on this is at the center of all these modules, God's presence that drives content, that directs content, the design, the social presence. That should be there. God's presence would mean seeking God's kingdom first and all the time. The presence of Jesus, the character of Jesus, the law, His word, the lamp and light. These are to be the center. The presence of the Holy Spirit should be the center of the module. And that dictates content, that dictates learning process, that dictates assignments, that dictates everything inside the module. And that is the community of inquiry from my perspective. So that is where I would like things to happen. So God's presence must be the driving element in each of these areas in our module. All right. So I discussed already the community of inquiry. And when you design your module, the elements of the module, the components of lessons, of course, we have objective, learning targets. We have the body where we will share, carry out content. We will be sharing skills and competencies. Then at the end, you have reflection. You close the lesson. Basically, when we ask Ullman, this is what thinking back of what we have done. Last part, when we ask Ullman, these are the components of a lesson, basically. So Cunningham also, if we will consider, your module should have an introduction, your module should have foundation, your module should have brain activation, the module in sequence, from top to down until the end of, so sequence of learning events. So you have an introduction, you have the foundation, brain activation, the body of new information. So the learning proper, the body of the lesson is in the fourth phase. And we have clarification, practice and review, independent practice and closure. So that's his design. So if you feel that this is a good design for you, so you structure your module with this. So introduction, you're right. Foundation, what you can, okay, you can maybe part of introduction is foundation. It's up to you for as long as these elements are found until the end of the module. Okay. Look, if we will use the backward design, this is understanding by design. We'll just review. Maybe you missed this, but this is very important. I'll go through this slowly. Okay. Wiggins and McTighe, they said, BD, when you design backward design. So we develop a module starting by identifying desired results. We determine the acceptable evidence. We plan learning and experience and instruction. So that's how we will organize. So the backward is, first we have to identify the outcome of the lesson, and we will identify the skills and content. So the evidence also, okay, and then content last. Anyway, we will discuss each of these. So the desired results, what will students know, understand, and we will be able to do the desired results. So we will identify that first. In the milk, you already know what the identified results is. The milk will tell you this is the expected result. All right? And then you'll see if this is the result, what is the performance task? So that's what we will do, right? So that's what we have been doing. If this is the desired result, if this is the MEL, the most essential learning competency, then what is the performance task? This is the acceptable evidence of learning associated with the MEL, the most essential learning competency. All right? Then, if you already have determined those two, then you can start planning for experiences, learning experiences and instruction. So, what will we do first so that we can achieve the MEL? What will be next? What are the learning experiences? What are the assessments? So, let's do that later on. So, desired results, see, the enduring understanding is the performance task. All right? You will notice that enduring understanding, how will we know that we have understood a specific concept? We know it and we can do. Say know and do. So this is performance task. Know and do is also performance tasks and projects. That's the reason why we have performance tasks in our grading system in the Department of Education. During this year, they said no more examinations. Deped Order 31, I think, series of 2020, released in October. No more examinations, they said, but two areas for assessment. Okay, performance tasks, and then what is that? Uh, 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 written works, I should say, written works. No, so the performance task. The performance task will be the tool to detect that the students know and can do what they have learned. Okay, what they know. Okay, so transfer of learning. So, what is an enduring understanding? It goes beyond discrete facts or skills to focus on larger concepts, principles, or processes. They are applicable. Okay, enduring understanding applicable to new situations within or beyond the subject. Students need to get inside of and retain and after forgetting many details. So forgetting many details, but when we can experience, they will never forget those. And along those experiences are concepts, principles that they will not really forget. So that is enduring understanding, and we can detect that if the students can perform performance tasks, and performance tasks must be placed in context in real life settings. How do we choose how do we choose or identify the competency outcome or enduring understanding? Enduring value beyond the classroom. The extent of its residence at the heart of the discipline. The extent of uncoverage. Okay? The potential, that's a competency. The potential for this to engage students. So that's a competency. This is a competency because it goes beyond the classroom. Okay? The application of the competency goes beyond the classroom. The competency can be used in real life setting. Okay? And it is at the heart of the discipline. Say, for example, writing. That's a competency, no? Writing essays. That's a competency. It goes beyond the classroom. It's not only a task that is done inside the classroom. You can apply that in the workplace, when you write a thesis, when you write projects, when you write essays, when you write to your parents, writing. So that is a competency that goes beyond the classroom. What about x plus y? What about 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1? What about the Pythagorean theorem? How to do them? Okay? Does the value of this go beyond the classroom? Yes, if we know how to deliver this, okay, in the classroom or in the teaching learning process. So when we think about competency, what is the competency? Because we are looking at competency. What's the target? Target now is competency. So identifying the target, learning target, that's the competency. The Melk has stated that already. So what is a competency? Many are confused what that is. Knowledge, skills, or attitude that enable one to effectively perform the activities of a given occupation or function to the standards expected in employment. See? So knowledge, skills, and attitude that enable one to perform. So here is a competency. You have knowledge, skills, attitude, but that's only means. Those are just means. The end is, according to the definition, to effectively perform the activities of a given occupation or function of standards in employment. So you see, when we say competency, we are not saying acquiring knowledge. We are not saying only skills. I have the skills, I have the competencies, I have the abilities, but there must be performance. So that's why a competency must be stated in the application. So the verbs that we will use in competency should be the verbs in application. Verbs. Okay. In Bloom's taxonomy, do you remember? The verb should be lifted, should be used from the application side upwards. Application, synthesis, evaluation, making connections, etc. They have to be, because their students will be required to perform, all right, but using knowledge, skills, and abilities. So if the competency is just defined, probably that's still in the knowledge section. Performance transfer of learning supposed to be. All right. So, what are performance tasks? Have you been developing performance tasks? Performance tasks and projects as complex challenges that mirror the issues and problems faced by adults. You see, those are performance tasks. They are complex tasks, challenges that mirror the issues and problems faced by adults. They are authentic. Okay? Performance tasks should be authentic, not just, okay, stand in front and then recite, memorize. That's your performance task. Hey, by definition, no. It should be authentic. Real life. Multi-stage project. Okay, real life, authentic. Feature a setting that is real or simulated. So you can simulate or you can feature a setting that is real. That's a performance task. So you bring that performance task into a real life situation. So require a student of a performance task associated with the MELT most essential learning competency that is done in a real setting. In other words, there is transfer of learning. So allow the student greater opportunity to personalize the task. Here we have the concept flexibility, personalizing the task, flexibility. And of course, a performance task has tasks, criteria, standards, which are known in advance to the learners. That's why in the module, we also have to place there our rubrics because these are our standards that will guide the performance of the learners. Okay? Then you plan learning experiences. That's the stage 3, no? Stage 2, we said, what is stage 2? Stage 1, desired results. And then we go to performance standards. What is the outcome and what is the desired evidence? We have the performance task. And stage 3, we start the planning, okay? And the experiences and the instruction. So we have to ensure that our planned learning activities and experiences are coherent learning experiences, all right? They are not fragmented. They have a direction that this is the teaching that will evoke and develop desired understandings. They promote interest. They wake excellence performance. Okay, so this is the design portion of the lesson. Now, when you develop a module, if start with direct instruction. Okay, you can start by using Madeline Hunter. Madeline Hunter says, now look at how Madeline Hunter arranges the module. Okay, so in the module you have an introduction, you have the stated objectives, you have the anticipatory set, then the module shifts to input, modeling or model practice, checking for understanding, guided practice. Then you go to independent practice and closure, the summary of the lesson. So you can write a module that the headings will be the 7 areas. Okay, so stated, you in fact you can change the names if you like. Okay, change the labels if you like, for as long as they represent object introduction. So back introduction you will say, but introduction you will say learning competencies. So you can say, if this is the first part, your introduction of the module, so you will say this is the introduction of the module. I am just modeling here. So then the introduction of the module, you can say first part, you will have an introduction, 2-3 paragraphs. Then you will write the objectives, and of course you will say competencies. Okay, most essential learning competency, you can say that. And after that, of course, since you want to have the gospel there, of course you have a devotional there. So you can write your module, you have a devotional, then your anticipatory set, and then you go through the module. Okay, you write instructions in each of the parts, and when you write instructions of the parts, then you finish the module. This is what you will give the learner. So when we say checking for understanding, you will use your formative assessments here. Okay, content will be placed inside here, content and skills. Okay, and then in the checking for understanding, you will have formative assessments. Okay, and when you go to independent practice or the last part, you can even say, okay, here I'll put my performance tasks. Okay, I'll put the PT here. So you can do that. You can make adjustments. So I'm just saying that the structure is coherent. Okay, you are following a model in designing your module, in developing your module. So when we say, okay, getting students to learn, why did I introduce devotional there? And you can introduce IFL in all the aspects of the module. You can insert, because God's presence, right? So the social presence is there. So you can provide activities there inside the modeling, maybe, or checking for understanding when they are groups, dyads, triads, cooperative learning, guided practice, or independent practice. And students will read the module and perform the requirements, what is stated in the module. So but you're addressing social presence, God's presence there center, and you also have the teaching presence because you have organized the module very carefully. All right. So, getting students set to learn, objectives. Anticipatory set. What is anticipatory set? These are the activities in the module where you create a sense of anticipation. So you can require them to perform, to do a game discussion. You can watch a film or a video clip or a field trip. You can put requirements there, the tasks that they will do in this set section there, reflective exercise and others, for as long as it will create a sense of anticipation, a motivation that they will go to the next part of the module, which is the lesson proper. So the lesson proper will be the direct instruction and checking for understanding. So you have the input now. This will be the content. This will be the skills. You can model them how to solve a problem. You can model them the mathematical problem. This is the problem. This is the concept. These are the principles. This is an example. All right. And you can provide activities there. So if it's in an online class, you can then introduce, you can put a video, you can put an example, you can link, you have a hyperlink to other areas in the web where they can access information, as these are the content of the lesson. And then you go for checking and understanding. So you can ask questions there, you can place your formative assessments, some activities where when the students will do these activities, you can detect that they have really acquired that input in number three. All right. Then guided practice. Students demonstrate, model. So more practice. Okay, you can put there activities. So you put instructions there. Integrate your teaching, learning strategies there. Some activities that you will integrate. Integrate them. But ensure that all of these are aligned to the expected learning or most essential learning competency. They are aligned to the objectives of the lesson. So we are ensuring that we target the achievement of the most essential learning competency. Of course, you have flexibility here in the independent practice. Here you can start introducing. You can introduce your performance. Okay, you will introduce your performance task. All right. So okay. So I'm just putting it there so that I illustrate to you. I'm coaching live, okay? Performance task. So you can put the performance task there in the independent practice, and there they will be doing after guided practice, right? So you can provide activities related to, associated to, similar to the associated with, similar to independent practice. Then you close the lesson with a summary, and you can provide reflective questions for them, and then they will be answering the module, and they will be, see, that is it is direct, a strategy for direct instruction, a model, but you can still be flexible. Okay, 50-50, teacher student, active learning. Students will be engaged depending on the kind of activities, the type of activities you will introduce in each of the parts of the design. Now, what about design number two, where model? The where model, where is it going? Hook, explore and equip, rethink and revise, exhibit and evaluate. See, this is a sequence of learning. This is competency based. See, exhibit, perform. See, where is it going? Of course, you know what that is. Where is it going? What are the students' final obligation? This will be your milk, all right? What will be the milk? All right. Okay. Anchor performance assessment. Okay, what will be the PT? Okay, PT will be the evidence of milk. All right, that's correct. Evidence of milk. Okay, see? All right. Then I will say, see, you have identified that. So once you go to the mail, okay, but even only if you go to the mail, what other standards have you, what other competences should be there from the church, from the university, from your curriculum, and purposeful work? Questions needed to be asked. So what are these? So you can put that there to start with. That's the first part of the module. So if you'll follow this design, very easy. How many parts only? How many sections of the module only? Where? Hook. Explore and equip. Rethink and revise. Exhibit and evaluate. In fact, you can change the names. You can change the names, the labels. Where? You can change. You can be, but the idea is still following the sequence. Stating first the where is it going, and then next, hook the students. So what will be the hook? This is equivalent to anticipatory set, right? This is equivalent to anticipatory set in Madeline Hunters. So the hook will be through engaging and provocative entry points. So the entry points to the lesson. All right, this will be your anticipatory set. So provide thought. How do you do that? So in that part of the module there, before the lesson proper, you have thought-provoking and focusing experiences. You can write there. You can write. You can start the pre okay, the pre-section, pre-lesson or pre-lesson proper, you say issues, oddities. You can have problems. So these are the focusing on experiences. So that will be some, okay, I will highlight. All right, and probably I'll underline. Okay, so see, issues, oddities, problems, challenges. You place that there. You write that in the module. Okay, essential questions if you would like, core ideas that we are starting to uncover. Okay, in fact, you can also write the performance test, and that's hook. How to hook? What else? Instant immersion in questions, problems, challenges, situations, or stories that will prompt problem-based learning or case method. You can do that. Thought provocations. You can start hooking the students, hooking them, attracting their attention so that they will really study the module. Anomalies, weird facts, counterintuitive events, right? Or ideas. Then making strains familiar and familiar strains. All right. So you can write if you're very talented in writing that way. Making strains familiar and making familiar strains. And you can start the module with that in that hook. And then you go to the lesson proper. Okay? So they are they are called experiential shocks, which confront the feelings, the obstacles, problems, okay? And then there are different points of view or multiple perspectives so that the learner's mind will open, and then be hooked to what will come ahead. And that is the lesson proper. So this is now the lesson proper, okay? LP, lesson proper. And this is now explore and equip. Now, after students being hooked through some reading, some those that we have mentioned, then they go to the lesson proper, engaging the students in learning experiences. Then they will be exploring the big ideas, the essential questions. They will have research. They will be testing ideas. They try things out depending on the activities you have placed in explore and equip. Okay, but they are grappling with knowledge, information, skills. This is the section equivalent to Madeline Hunter as, what is this one? Modeling, all right? Modeling, practice, modeling. Okay, modeling. And what are ways to explore and okay? What are ways to explore and equip? Explanation. Interpretation, we use the facets of understanding. Application, perspective, empathy, self-knowledge. You can review them. I'm just enumerating this to situate all of this where you should place this inside the module. So you can have explanation activities, interpretation. You can focus on them. Okay, and when you ask them, okay, this is explore and equip. Then you go to the next, reflect and rethink. Dig deeper into ideas at issue. Okay, this is now reflect and rethink, revise, rehearse, mastery, refining knowledge. So students getting into self-assessment, self-adjustment, feedback. So provide activities there that will facilitate, reflect and rethink, revise, rehearse. Okay, what things explored, things things explored in the lesson proper. All right. Then you shift then to exhibit and evaluate. So how will you know that the students can exhibit and evaluate? So you have your meaningful performance task, and the performance task will illustrate whether or not they understood by looking at whether they can explain, they can interpret, they can apply. So your performance task will be situated in this type of skills. Okay, explanation, they can interpret, they will do some application, perspective taking, going out to the empathizing, self-knowledge, reflecting, some of those. You can review them if you have your text in UBD. So evaluate. So here, this is the last portion of the lesson. When they exhibit and evaluate understanding, how do you know that they understood? They can explain, they can apply, they can interpret, self-knowledge, empathy, and others. Evaluate in terms of quality and effectiveness. So this is now the last part of the module. So you can organize your module that way. In how many parts? As we just said, one, two, three, four, five. Five parts. So, but you can change the label, okay, the heading of the module, side heading of the module as you write, but without losing the idea that this first is where we are going. Hook, you can insert your devotional there. You can equip and explore, rethink and revise, exhibit, and the module ends. So maybe the module will be 5, 6 pages. For elementary or high school, you have 10 pages, but you are only taking a look at the very important um, core competencies addressed in the where is it going. All right. Let's go to, so you have, look, objective, still the same. Body, okay, we expanded that. Madeline Hunter expanded that. And the UBD, understanding by design, expanded also the objective body reflection. Say expanding, all right? So here, that will influence the way you will design the learning module. Okay. So we have the last one. The last one is the dimensions of learning. Since 1994, I fell in love. I have felt I have fallen in love, I should say. I have fallen in love with the dimensions of learning because this provides us a better understanding of how learning takes place and how should learning take place. These are aspects of learning which should be considered when doing instruction, curriculum, and assessment. So when you design your instructional material, when you design your module, your lesson, these aspects of learning should be considered. All right. So dimension one should be considered. Dimension two should be considered. Three, four, five. Dimension one, consider the positive attitudes and perceptions about learning. Consider the acquiring and integrating knowledge dimension. Consider the extending and defining knowledge. Consider the using knowledge meaningfully section, phase, okay, the dimension. And then habits of mind. So how is that? How is that done? Let's try to review the assumptions here. The instruction must reflect the best of what we know about learning. So how will learning occur? Learning occur in these stages. So our instruction, okay, when we employ dimensions of learning or DOL, we should not commit a mistake. Okay? That all these dimensions are considered because this is how learning occurs. Learning occurs when Dimension 1, dimension 2, dimension 3, dimension 4, 5. Okay. Number 2, learning involves a complex system of interactive processes. And what are the processes? 5 types of thinking. What are these? All those 5 dimensions. All right. Curriculum should include explicit teaching of attitudes. What do we teach in learning? What do we teach? And what do we teach? How do we teach? And explicit teaching of what? Attitudes, perceptions, mental habits, and all of these are within dimensions of learning. So, as comprehensive approach to include at least 2 distinct types of instruction. Okay, I will skip that. Assessment should focus on students' use of knowledge and complex reasoning processes rather than on their recall of information. So, your assessment, look, the assessment that you employ, if you will employ dimensions of learning, should not should use, okay, should focus on students' use of knowledge, and that is competency, correct? Use of knowledge, transfer of knowledge, okay? Use of knowledge, and this is competency. That's what I like. That's what I like about that's what I like about dimensions of learning, because when we have been applying this in my classes, and I have realized that students will really be engaged in learning because much of the assignments, the tasks in assessment are use of knowledge. Assessments are not only true or false, simple recall, fill in the blanks, etc. Because we ensure complex reasoning processes. I'll just highlight this one. Uh, Rather than, okay, complex reasoning processes rather than recall of information. Okay, so that is it. Dimension 1, so our design number 3 will be design number 1, Madeline Hunter. Number 2, we have understanding by design, the backward design. And number 3, design will be dimensions of learning. This will help us design the learning process and the focus. We maintain the focus on learning. We have in the planning instruction that takes place accounting for all the 5 of the aspects of learning. Okay. Dimension 1, positive attitudes and perceptions, feeling comfortable. So at this stage of the module, you provide activities that students will feel comfortable, safe. It's an okay, no put downs. This is motivation, positive mindset. So that's the beginning of the module, right? And if we can introduce here the spiritual motivation. Very nice. We begin the lesson with God. We begin the lesson with the principles of the kingdom. After a short introduction, then the motivation, then ordering. What is ahead? What is the where is it going? So this is the dimension 1 equivalent to the where is it going in that part. But here the focus is developing positive attitudes and perceptions. This is anticipatory set also. Okay, we're just combining them. Then after the pupil, the learner is prepared by reading the module, the first part, then acquiring and integrating knowledge. Okay, acquiring because it's new knowledge, integrating because this is a link between the old knowledge and new knowledge. So we are then after that we organize information, and then store information, the long-term memory. So these are the activities that we have to we have to employ activities in dimension 2 that will be for acquiring and integrating knowledge. Number 3, extending and refining knowledge. So adding new distinctions, extending. So after acquiring and refining knowledge, then we extend further connections. So I have just learned this. So you provide activities where students will make comparisons, classifying, making inductions, deductions, analyzing errors, creating and analyzing support, perspectives, analyzing perspectives related to what has been acquired, an integrated new lesson. So the new lesson is extended. So more connections, okay, expanding knowledge. So here you have flexibility, right? Flexibility is here. Flexibility. So you apply flexibility and you can add technology. So how will you share? If this is online, how do you share the comparison? How do you do comparing? So you can put uh, flexibility there, apply. Then dimension 3, extending and refining knowledge. Dimension 3 will be dimension 4 then is using knowledge meaningfully. So effective learning occurs when students are able to use knowledge, and this is transfer, this is competency. So here you begin to develop the competency. If you have stated earlier in dimension 1 the male, then at this time they will start practicing performance tasks. So put variety, be flexible, provide more options students can access. Okay, we discussed this already a while ago, right? Performance task. So this is the using knowledge meaningfully. And dimension 5, of course, will be using knowledge meaningfully. How do you facilitate this? How do you write it in the module? Provide activities which will allow the learners to make decisions, investigation, problem solving, invention, experimental inquiry. So all of these, one, two, three, four, five, decision making, investigation, these are some activities, the nature of the activities that you can employ. When the students do this, they are using knowledge meaningfully. Of course, they are associated with dimension 2, dimension 3, those knowledge and skills they have acquired. So they will apply. How will they apply? They can probably uh, be engaged in an activity where the target is decision making in application of what they have learned, what they have acquired, what they have extended and refined in dimension 3, right? They can probably do investigation, research, problem solving, invention, making prototypes or solutions to problems, etc. Okay? Habits of mind, of course. Habits of mind: critical thinking, creative thinking, self-regulated thinking. I will skip this one, but I will uh, here's the slide here. Habits, I'll briefly discuss habits, productive habits of mind. In the model of the dimensions of learning, I think I have a slide just before this. Okay, this is the slide. Dimensions of learning, dimension 5 and dimensions. So how will dimension 2, 3 and 4 be performed? That if you have the habits of mind. Look at this model here, the habits of mind and the attitudes and perceptions on learning, okay, encapsulates 2, 3 and 4. That means the habits of mind, critical thinking, creative thinking, they have to be used alongside after development of attitudes and perceptions. So if my attitude and perception on learning is positive, I am inspired to do the module, I am inspired, I am motivated, and I have those mental skills, then I can acquire and integrate knowledge. I can extend and refine knowledge. I can use knowledge meaningfully. That's what it means with this model here. Habits of mind, okay, just around these other dimensions because they are foundation to performing all of these. All right, so once they have reached dimension 4, if they have reached dimension 4 already, then of course they can be also performing habits of mind. Now, sir, so in our experience here, in my experience, since I am helping out Central Philippines, all elementary schools in the Central Philippines with how many? 6 missions every week. We meet and then we design our modules. We check on our modules, those that we have distributed to the learners. We personalize our design. So here, this is what the sequence of events. So this is how we structure the module for science and others. This is one design. Leap, for example, leap. Okay, lean on dimension one. There's introduction. Here is devotion and faith development, stating where is it going, learning outcomes and standards of performance. They right there. Okay, the introduction and anticipatory set. Okay, explore and engage. So linking to prior knowledge, development of new skills. So you put activities inside here. So here we have changed the name. Instead of dimension one, positive attitudes and perceptions, lean on. But that lean on encapsulates the idea of developing positive attitudes. I think you know what I mean. Assimilate and apply, we are saying, use extending and refining knowledge here. Activities where students revise, rehearse, apply to real life and practice because you have to use knowledge. Then extend and refine, and then using knowledge meaningfully. Dimension 4 and 5, demonstration of learning. Here you have your performance task, and that's the end. So the instructions in the module are placed in these areas. The learning activities are placed in these categories, in these areas, in these subheadings. Okay. So in fact, I developed one myself and I taught COVID. Connect, dimension one. Own your learning, dimension one. But then venture into something new, dimension two. Internalize, extending and refining knowledge, dimension three. Then I said demonstrate for using knowledge meaningfully, productive habits of mind. So I just discussed with you how we can structure the module, and you can apply this online. You just paste it in your CMS and put links. Okay, link materials. I think we can model that sometime, but and you can insert. So if it's in the print module, of course, you have to write down all of those. And if you have other link, other materials as flexible, no, flexible materials, flexible to address flexibility, you can insert materials in the print. Well, of course, students must go to the internet to find those. You can also send videos, etc., as part of the print. But in the online, full online, you can just do the hyperlinks yourself, right? Inserting all those materials, podcast, all the materials, okay, chat boards, etc. So I hope that I have. In fact, there's one more. See, refresh, reap. This one church school, this one mission that I'm helping says we want to have reap. I think it's Davao mission because we want to ensure that we share the idea that reap design is harvest. This is we are waiting for the second coming. The background is reward, baptism, fruits of the spirit, and we integrate these principles in our reap design. This is our anchor of integration of faith and learning. So they say refresh and reflect, dimension one, explore, dimension two, apply, dimension three. So the nature of the activities in each of the sections illustrate dimensions of learning. All right. So I hope that we have covered these principles here, and we apply when we design modules. Let's not forget, let's apply design principles, and if we can apply them, I'm sure we have achieved our goal that we are designers of learning, instructional designers. We are engineers, and we shape the experience, and we can be flexible in all these areas here, in any of the parts of the module, applying those principles. But let's not forget that at the heart of this, God's presence must drive all our teaching presence, social presence, and our um, content, uh, uh, cognitive presence. And when God's presence is felt in our modules, in all the areas, in all the designs, then we will know, when we are assured that we are successful and we are blessed of God. God bless us as we finish up with this session, and the last session will be some tips on how we can, what are the practices that schools have used when they implement flexible learning. And we will be learning from their experience and I'll hope to see you in the next session. God bless everyone.